Told you no longer than a month. That was a close one.
Too close.
To continue the meg-analysis with the gang members, I had to ask myself how this ought to be done. What structure should I build with? What angle should they all be approached at? Should they be ordered logically by each character's story relevance, presence, and prevalence? Or shall we maintain the train and see what comes next the moment we all reach each transition? The most important question, as with any project or goal, is where should we begin? You might think Arthur Morgan or Dutch van der Linde would be the obvious choices for the first characters for me to unpack, but in my mind that is literally the last thing I should do. If I were to dedicate videos to these two men individually, I'd just be recapping the entire story, which I just finished doing. That's why I felt the need to cover those character moments between these two during the chapter series, because those moments are just that unavoidable when summarizing the major themes and plot points. Any comprehensive analysis of this game is going to end up focusing on Dutch and Arthur. In fact, I'm predicting that it will take probably 6 videos to cover just those two. I got 6 essays, 3 for each of you. So what should we do? Well, let's take a look at what we have. When movies have multiple main characters, when TV shows have a plethora of players in the plot field, it can be difficult as a viewer to track them all, but even more difficult as the author to write them all as equally compelling. 1 character? Easy peasy. 2 characters? Lemon squeezy. 3 characters? That's a triad. Nothing stronger. 4 characters? Well, that's a band. Come together. 5 characters? That's a team. That's a squad. That's a team. 6 characters? Okay, now we're in the Avengers territory, and even then, that was pushing it. 7 characters? Well, I can't imagine that. Okay, but even so, this has already begun being a lot.
Squeeze!
And how many characters are in the van der Linde gang? 25. Sell at 25. Okay, I am exaggerating a little. I am including the dog. But still, 24 fleshed out members of the one party the audience cares about? How in the world do you make all that work?
Very carefully.
I present to you the theory of these characters embodying essential symbolic elements.
Cheese.
Cheese theory. It's how novels like Lord of the Flies present their characters to represent traits or aspects of life, and it's how I think Rockstar approached the development of 20-something characters that, despite belonging to the same group, are all independent and believable people. Everyone has a place, and everyone contributes something, even if they contribute nothing.
I was thinking.
The theory is that every single person embodies a specific aspect or thematic element of the gang as a whole. Dutch being the head, Hosea being prudence, Arthur okay, we'll save that one, Sean representing joy, etc. No one is a caricature, and no one is a stereotype. Now, outside the gang, yeah, there's plenty, perhaps too many stereotypes, but not inside this family. Within the van der Linde gang, there's riches of compelling thematic depth here, and I believe this framing will help us understand Red Dead Redemption 2 even better. So let's start from the very beginning. A very good place to start.
Doe, a deer, a female.
Got it. Well done.
The game begins by declaring the downfall of the outlaw life, and the first line of the whole story shall be our first guide.
Abigail says he's dying, Dutch. We'll have to stop someplace.
However, instead of starting with Abigail or the Reverend, I found it best to first analyze the gang members we never get to meet.
Davy's dead.
There was nothing more you could have done.
Davy Callander, Mac Callander, and Jenny Kirk, the one who Arthur drew a portrait of. These are the folks that these folks miss.
Guess folks missed them. That fell.
I loved Davy, Jenny, Sean, Mac. They may be okay. We don't know. But we lost some folks.
What does it mean to have this many already deceased gang members? Why would Rockstar have Arthur draw a portrait of a girl who just joined the gang just to have her never appear? Is this just a visual reference? Is that why we never see Mac because we already see Davy? Am I just overthinking it again?
Probably.
I ask because I'm pretty sure there's more to these characters than Blackwater Massacre happened, people died, and here's one of them. That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
Am I really going to cast Speak with Dead and make them tell me how they thematically contributed? Thankfully, I don't have to. The gang reminisces about Davy, Mac, and Jenny enough for us to know them, and there's enough testimonies to justify these three's excluded inclusion in the game. But before I start showing those, I want to thank Point Zero for catching and capturing basically all the camp scenes in the game. It's an excellent resource that I wish I took the time to make myself, so the least I can do is give a shout out and my endorsement of his content. I'm Kyle Kringle, and this is my favorite Red Dead channel on the internet. Yikes, that's 3 Mass Effect references. I wonder what the next video's about. Anyway, in the first mission, when Micah creeps from the cold, he is told of their passings and missings, ignoring Jenny as he remembers the Callander boys.
How's Davy doing?
He didn't make it. Nor did little Jenny.
That's too bad. Davy was a real fighter. Both of them Callander boys is, or was.
Yeah.
While Micah is generally full of it, his assessment here is consistent with other camp encounters. Aside from the simple, yeah, I'm gonna miss him chats, there's about 4 conversations about the Callander boys that adequately capture who and what was lost.
Callander boys.
In the mission Exit Pursued by a Bruised Ego, Hosea remembers a story about losing a saddle in Deer Creek.
Mac went crazy, threatened to kill the whole town. And Davy was passed out so cold we left him there, came back in the next day, and he woke up and started right back drinking again.
I miss those boys.
Jenny, too. She had some spot, that girl.
In this conversation, the 3 fallen are lumped together, but each given unique qualities. Mac was a violent man, Davy was a drunk man, and Jenny had what the French call, I don't know what, but it's a good thing to have. Starting with Davy, he's described here as a heavy drinker. At camp, Lenny speaks ill of both brothers and calls out Davy specifically.
I'm gonna miss them Callander boys. They'd fighting them.
I won't. They were a liability.
It's not kind to talk poorly of the dead.
David Callander was a dangerous fool. I imagine it was his fault things went so bad in Blackwater.
When you're playing poker with Lenny, you might hear Arthur talk about how the game shapes you.
Well, nobody can say I had a misspent youth.
Poker builds character, as the saying goes.
Who said that?
I think Davy Callander did.
Well, we can't speak ill of the dead.
So Lenny doesn't like him, an outlier among the gang, but his assessment of them being a liability is accurate. At worst, they were a safety risk. At best, they were an annoyance.
Sure is quiet without them Callander boys around.
Yeah, damn shame.
Spent all my time telling them to shut up. Now I miss it.
As the rowdy siblings, they added liveliness to the camp. Karen mourns the quiet as it marks the loss of this liveliness. Regarding Mac, he's remembered by Uncle and Bill during supper, the 2 of them sharing a genuinely solemn moment.
Real shame about them Callander boys, I reckon.
Sure.
You know, I once saw Mac beat up 15 sailors.
That ain't nothing. Everybody knows them Navy boys can't fight. That's why they float.
Oh, that's so.
Sure. That ain't nothing. I once beat up 20.
Okay.
But, I'm gonna miss Mac. He was a good man. Kind of fellow you like to rob alongside,
Yeah.
you know? Heartless son of a bitch. But he had a heart. That makes any sense.
I know what you mean. R.I.P., Mac.
Bill is usually treated by both the gang and the writers as the big angry dumb guy, but here he drops a poetic banger in front of Uncle, who for once doesn't joke, but agrees with him. Mac was heartless, but he had a heart. That description is not just familial, it's familiar.
He was a good man.
I miss them boys, too.
Well, Lenny here says it was a liability.
They was, but I still miss them.
Together, the Callander boys serve as memories of the typical past of the Vanderlyn gang. They're always up to no good, but there's always a good time to be had. You don't exactly love the things they're doing, but there is something lovable about them.
I can see.
Am I talking about the Callander brothers or the gang as a whole? Exactly. Davy and Mac were the representations of what the gang really is. Vibrant, vice-ridden, and vicious.
And what about the Callander boys? Both killed trying to escape Blackwater? A more vicious pair of bastards than ever was. And that's all they ever were and will be.
Unlike Arthur, those two brothers never had the chance at redemption. If they're supposed to represent the gang as a whole, then it might also be the case that the gang had no chance for redemption. The individuals within, sure, plenty of them, but not the organization. The organization had to go. Under Dutch's wing, the Callander boys became like good sons, like the first two brothers. And according to Agent Milton, Mac's dying words were a lot like Arthur's romantic defense of their outlawry.
I haven't done anything wrong, aside from not play the games to your rules.
Spare me the philosophy lesson. I've already heard it from Mac Callander.
Mac Callander?
He was pretty shot up by the time I got to him. So really, it was more of a mercy killing. Slow, but merciful.
So the Callander brothers didn't just embody the general actions of the gang. At least half of them also embraced the philosophies. Awful people, but they were loved. They were fighters, fun, family. To lose them is not just losing a coworker or a neighbor. Losing them was like losing a limb. That's why they had to be brothers, to emphasize that loss in the family. Not doing the Fast and the Furious joke, I already did it. But the loss of these two brothers is not the same as losing the new girl. Jenny Kirk was picked up at roughly the same time Micah was, according to Arthur's journal, which mentions them both in the same sentence.
I gotta find that voice again. We picked up a couple new folk in the Grizzlies. Jenny, sweet young girl we met abandoned on the roadside. And Micah, an outlaw Dutch met in a bar someplace. As I've mentioned in the Drawing Like Arthur series,
that I need to get back to.
Micah never gets immortalized in the journal, but Jenny does. The first time you see this portrait is after you rescue Sadie and later John. So the impression I first had was, hey, this girl kind of looks like that other one. And while there are those clear distinctions in the details of both portraits, I think that for both women, Arthur found them impressive enough to sketch them, as in they made a great impression. Sadie's portrait is made after Arthur shops with her and he finds out that she can handle her own against other gunmen. Pretty outstanding, worth the art. So maybe Jenny's portrait came about after seeing that spark Hosea mentioned. Something more than just youth and beauty. She's described as sweet when alive and as poor thing in little Jenny when dead. So she had to have been fairly young and fairly liked.
You liked her, didn't you, kid?
Well, sure. I mean... yeah, I liked her.
I know, kid.
Javier liked her too. In Clement's Point, you might catch this campfire moment.
I was just thinking how Jenny would have liked it here.
She loved to swim.
I know you two were close.
That could be a throwaway line, but it might explain why no one else swims. It's special that Jenny enjoyed being in the water, as there are few activities that indicate how carefree someone is than swimming. Remember that one guy?
Arthur, are you seeing this? The feather's naked as a jaybird.
Is that why you like this spot?
Bro might have some problems, but he has no problems. This man is a free spirit. Jenny's spark could have been that same kind of spirit. Jenny wasn't just a sweet and nice, not even 20-something. She was teeming with life and potential, finding her place swimmingly within this unorthodox family, to the point that she felt safe and free. Jenny had such spirit, and I believe her surname hints of that spirit too. But I'm going to pause for a second, because while I would have covered what Callander means for the hopes of uncovering more theme, I instead found out that its etymology is basically unknown, so I don't exactly want the reputation of being this over-analyzing nutjob as if I didn't have it already. The point is, I specifically don't want to commit to unpacking everyone's names as if they all have special thematic meanings, because Karen Jones, Charles Smith. Look, I believe in naming my characters with purpose and parallels, but sometimes you just gotta name a fella John. But Micah Bell, Hosea Matthews, even Arthur and Morgan have allusions worth understanding. And I think for Jenny, Kirk is more than just a name. It means church in Old Norse and Scottish, as in the Kirk of Scotland, the gathering of the faithful. The Kirk is where the spirit can be found, being one with the community. dedicating themselves to something greater. For the gang, the great something was their Robin Hood cause and loyalty to each other. That should have been their future. With the new blood, there was new life. Jenny, like Lenny, was supposed to have a full future ahead of her. Perhaps the kind of future that was lost in Blackwater. Again, we have to ask, why did Rockstar bother adding her to the story? They could have omitted her and had Arthur draw an ominous sketch of Micah. But there has to be a reason. The two of them appear in the same sentence from the journal. And I think it's this. Jenny and Micah represent two futures for the gang. Jenny was hope. The times were good. They all had each other, plenty of resources, and a chance to scam the crooks of this up-and-coming town. Jenny would have prospered with them. But Dutch chose another future. The one where he took the advice of that new guy.
We were on to something big. Then Micah got you all excited about that ferry, and here we are.
The man who incited Dutch to go a step too far by shooting another young woman who died too soon.
Sometimes I start thinking about that girl. Well, Javier knows what we saw, and it weren't pretty. Ask Micah. Although he encouraged it, weren't pretty at all.
But Jenny was not shot on the ferry. She wasn't there. Couldn't have been. It's not the tendency of Dutch to bring the women on the front lines of the major robberies. As distractions, sure, but not as the muscle. True, there was Karen at the Valentine Bank, but that doesn't count because that was Bill's job, not Dutch's. And Sadie had to ask to come along on a job before Dutch ever considered it.
When you gonna let me come robbing with you, Dutch?
My lord.
And even then, her only involvement in a major robbery was the final train job. I'm just painting the picture here because I think some Red Dead fans still imagine Jenny being shot during the ferry job and succumbing to her wounds north of Coulter. But no, she wasn't shot in Blackwater. She was shot escaping Blackwater, a job that marks the inevitable end for the entire gang.
Just feel a bit like our luck died with them too.
Because Dutch listened to Micah, Jenny was the first one to be lost. Their hope was screwed over by their doom.
You know I had Jenny.
What?
Yeah, round the back, Blackwater. Dirty little thing, too, come to think of it. I wonder if Lenny knows.
Don't tell him that.
She could have been carrying Micah Bell the Fourth, for all I know. Shame.
I am hopelessly inclined to believe him.